What's going on?
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts feeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll still be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I don't lie at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll still be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If you wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
We're gonna have to find an extended version of the song or a different song soon. I'm running out of space for all the celebrities we've had on the show for our intro. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. It is our Sunday night live event, and thank you guys all for joining us there in chat. So happy to see you, and so excited for you tonight with our topics and guests for discussion this evening. And Ken, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. I'm kind of looking forward to this to put a bow on 2024. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the guests we've had, some of the topics that we have covered, and a little bit of help from AI today to come up with what everybody's talking about in 2024. Some of the paranormally related stories that we just couldn't get enough of, or sometimes we did, but we're going to talk about it tonight anyway.
Yes. So we are simulcast for you guys that want to follow with us anywhere else, but here on our YouTube channel, we're at kgradv.com/dead-air. On Twitter, Global Radio Live is our content handle. Right here again, YouTube at Dead Air Nation if you're listening elsewhere. You also find us on Facebook, Dead Air Full Spectrum, and our personal Twitter /X/ still to come, Dead_Spectrum. And we are also on Patreon, and we would love for you guys to come join us. We had a great Monday town hall last week, a lot of things to discuss. But it's always neat to see new faces, new people joining us at any time. You're always welcome to the membership town hall every Monday at 8 p.m. All you got to do is become a Patreon member. So definitely make sure you guys check it out. Dead Air Paranormal. And we are experimenting right now. We already activated it, but the content is just starting under a new platform called Blue Sky. You want to tell them about it all, Ken?
Yeah, it's just an alternative to Twitter, and already a lot of people who are members and or Facebook friends have gone there. So political leanings notwithstanding, we just want to see if we can add a little good humor, a little goodwill, and a little bit of the paranormal to the platform. So we understand the political dynamics, but we're not really all about that. We're just trying to reach an audience. And if you're on Blue Sky, we'll be looking for you, or you look for us, whatever the case may be, very, very soon.
Blue skies. Yeah, we're gonna experiment out there. God only knows, the things that go on as far as social media right now. There's a lot of sensitive areas, uh, and you never know which ones are going to get shut down, which ones are going to explode, and so we're just trying to reach those audiences out there. Thank you, Tom.
So,
Um, it's a pretty useful program. I think I can somehow, some way find the website again and then put that on there for you guys
yeah,
so that you can see it. I'll do it sometime during the show tonight, so you guys can definitely check it out. Hope everybody's doing okay. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, the thumbs up for the content. Over and over and over again, we always say the same thing. Right now, I see no thumbs ups, and again, you do it once per show. You don't just do it once per channel. So if you're enjoying what you guys are watching tonight, a lot of our regulars in there, a lot of our Patreon members in there, go ahead and
sure.
hit that thumbs up button for us also, guys. And of course, the reminder bell. This is more so for the newbies that are out there who haven't done it yet. You hit that reminder bell and it will give you a notification whenever we have content, whether it's extremely strange, whether, well, that was weird, or the haunted couple that we do each and every week, but always providing entertainment for you guys and some things to think about also. But enough of all of that promotional stuff. We wanted to get into topic tonight, and I looked at the list of thumbnails that Ken's put together. This may be a 5-hour show tonight, guys. So I just wanted to give you a heads up and a warning first and foremost. But we're not just doing it with you and I, Ken. We've got some guests in it, don't we?
Yeah, we're happy to bring in a couple of people who are familiar with social media and the media field in general. And we thought it would be a great idea. These are friends of the show, people we've had on before. You absolutely love them. We do too. So our first guest, he's a comic and also a podcaster of the very popular My Paranormal Story. If you haven't subscribed or listened to it yet, go ahead and do that. Tom will give you an idea where you can find it. But let's welcome back Tom Stewart from
Hello, guys.
somewhere in the bunker in Fairhaven.
That's right. Down here in the freezing cold basement.
Yeah, I know. I want you to
How
be
are you,
funny.
George? How are you, Ken? Happy birthday, George.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. Don't remind me.
We need you to be funny tonight, Tom, because these
Oh,
are some
Jesus.
very serious topics. So we're going to need
Yes.
some levity.
I'll
That's
try and lighten the load here.
Yeah, I forgot. I got to put it out there also to all the different people. I got over 300 worth birthday wishes yesterday on social media, and that was really appreciated. So thank you guys so much. Don't, don't know how many more of these ahead of me, but I'm enjoying
Oh,
it.
many, many more. Many more.
Yeah. Breaking his previous record by 290.
That's right.
Oh no! Well, I tell you,
All right.
one,
So it's time to
one is wonderful, but you guys are also grateful. Thank you so much.
well deserved. Well deserved. Our second guest tonight, we're very happy to welcome him back to the show. He is the host of Spooky South Coast Radio and also a talk show on WBSM in New Bedford. He's done a lot of researching and writing in the paranormal field and for paranormal television, and a damn good American. Please welcome Tim Weisberg.
It's Tim. You're muted, Tim.
You're muted, Tim.
All right, how about that? Is that
Oh,
better?
there he is.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
All right.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So
Thanks for
thank
having
you
me,
for coming
everybody.
back. Well, I do enjoy your backdrop there. That's interesting and very
She is.
topical.
I needed something different. You know, I try to bring something different to the background every time I come on the show.
Tim is out there on the street in front of Miss Lizzie's coffee. A true
Yeah, it's
man.
got to
of
be
the people.
chilly in Fall River right
It's a little
now.
cold. I should have worn a jacket.
Yeah, suck it up, Buttercup. All right. So, George, should we dive right into this, or?
Yes, one of the things that, again, we wanted to make sure of is that we cover more than just the obvious tonight. And I know that, Tom, you had done something similar with regards to this last year. Why don't you start us off on something unique, something off the mainstream that really kind of affected the paranormal field in ways you didn't expect?
Yeah, I did just like a 5 top stories countdown on my podcast to wrap up the year, and there were a lot of stories to pick from. I'll tell you what my number one was, because I know you guys have a different number one than me. But I thought, to me, I feel like this is the year where paranormal television shows have basically died out. That the fad is over. Everybody's turning to YouTube now. There's no other than Zach Baggins. I don't think there are any other paranormal TV shows that are on with new episodes anymore. We've gone like a year and a half for Ghost Hunters. Nobody knows anything about Kindred Spirits, if they're coming back. A lot of other shows we know have been canceled. So I feel like it's the end. I feel like this might be the end of paranormal television, which to me makes me sad, because I've been watching shows like this since I was a little kid. Even before Ghost Hunters, we had shows that, did small documentaries about hauntings and stuff. So for me, that was my biggest story of the year, is that that's it. That we have to go to YouTube and the internet now if we want to see paranormal investigation and reality paranormal shows.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's from the paranormal reality aspect. I agree with you 1,000% that that's gone to the wayside or gone to other platforms for streaming. But I would imagine that we would still find from time to time. I haven't seen one in quite some time. That would be a documentary and or mockumentary about something regarding the paranormal. We can always expect that somebody's going to jump into that. But I mean, you answer this for me, Tom. How do you find anything anymore when there's so much content out there? You
Yeah.
could sweep right past it. Now I know Netflix later this month has a new UFO documentary series that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So those will still be put out there, but true investigative, I don't know if that's going to come about anymore, but it got so saturated with reality TV. They had what was the fishing one that was real popular? There's a couple of them actually, where they were out there doing the fishing. They have, then from the paranormal side, they had them out there seeking UFOs, seeking Bigfoot, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it really having any type of an allure anymore, because people can do it with a cell phone and a flashlight and go out and do this stuff now. So they're not looking to do it through the eyes of Hollywood anymore,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I think it's just a time that's come and gone, and it's a fad that's going away. But for the past 20 years or so, we had, engagement television. Like, we had weekly episodes of different shows that we could watch that were of paranormal investigation teams. And, it was mostly, it was all cable networks basically. But a lot of them, it was their bread and butter for a while. And now they've seemed to have moved on from it. And I don't know if it's the networks that are moving on, or if it's the people from those shows who have decided to move on. I think some of them enjoy the idea of being independent on something like YouTube, where they can call all the shots and do what they want. And there's no pressure of deadlines or producers editing things that they don't want edited. So it could be, two-sided here.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think
let me.
Tim can
Yeah.
speak to this better, but I just wanted to have a moment of silence for Destination America. If we could. Go
I
ahead.
mean, did it deserve a moment? I mean, I think it was in about 300 households at its peak. But Part of this is having worked in the media and in TV in particular, paranormal TV in particular. I can tell you, first of all, anybody that tells you they don't want to be on TV and they'd rather control it themselves, they're just giving you lip service there. Everybody would much rather be on a television channel where the distribution, where the funding, where everything is so much easier. You just show up, do what they tell you, and you get a paycheck, although it's a lot more meager than people would think it is. I think what you're seeing here is the changing of the entertainment industry overall. So if you look, NFL games are now streaming. WWE Raw, which is one of the biggest shows on cable television, streaming. The only real TV dramas that are drawing in viewers anymore are the ones that are created by Taylor Sheridan, streaming. So this is really where the entertainment business is going, and the production companies and the studios have realized that they don't need the television distribution model anymore because more and more people are cutting the cord. What's happening now, though, is as the streaming services are trying to pull people in to get them to subscribe, the paranormal content has proven not to be a big draw to get people to start spending money. Look at the way that the Discovery Plus launch went off. Nobody was tuning in and watching those TV shows. Instead, they were all complaining about the fact that they couldn't watch them on TV anymore, and they would never pay $5 a month for something while they're sucking on their third pack of cigarettes for that day. So the entertainment industry is changing, and the paranormal genre has to catch up to that, just as it did with cable television. So it's going to take a little while, but eventually you'll start to see that some of these paranormal shows that are getting big audiences on YouTube and on social media, TikTok, for as long as that's going to last, you're going to start to see that they're going to zero in on those audiences that they have and say, we want to bring those to our platform. But right now they've just got to spend their money on, Sylvester Stallone, Billy Bob Thornton, Kevin Costner, people like that first to get the subscribers and the eyeballs.
The difference that I have as far as that is concerned, I'm sorry, Ken, but I wanted to rebut what Tim was just saying because it's not an aspect anymore, at least for this next generation. Let's put it in those terms, that when it comes down to, I want to be on TV, I want to get that central exposure. And yet there are those who are out there, such as a Sam and Colby, such as Project Fear, switching over from Destination Fear, that are, without question, making more revenue doing it themselves than what they were getting paid through the networks. So is it a monetary decision to do something like that? I think so. Cash in hand. And we'll probably get into that a little bit later on.
That was not a monetary decision. That was they were canceled by the network and said, well, then we're just going to go and do it ourselves. That's right. That's what happened. They just spin it a different way publicly, but that's what's happening. These shows are not getting renewed. And then they come out and say, we're just going to do it ourselves because, we want to make sure we're giving it to you the way that we want it and not be controlled. That's a good B story to the fact that, you just weren't renewed.
Yeah. And that's one exception to the rule to so many of the others out there who didn't get a chance to ever be on television and yet are capitalizing through different means of social media. Look, you go out there in the world, no matter what you're doing, anywhere you go, and people are just heads down looking at their phones. Everybody's going onto social media. That's the place to be right now because it's convenient, it's quick, and it's accessible. And you don't have to pay for it because the advertising is already built in. Whereas if you want to get cable or any of the streaming services, that's a whole different story. So again, I think that it's created a completely different perspective for people who wanted to get into this field and get the exposure before it was limited. And that's what made the notoriety of the guys from Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures and such, because it was a limited, tight circle group. You see that when you go to the paranormal conventions and you see those are the ones that are there. But this new aspect of getting that out there, what they're doing, investigating, and they're getting pretty damn good at it also. The editing that they're doing, they're putting like the sound effects and all of that together is creating a different type of product, but people are engaged with it. So I don't think the paranormal necessarily is diminishing. I think it's kind of just thinning into other aspects of media that people will get into.
Well, let me ask you this, George. Then, do you, as a viewer and consumer of this type of product, do you get concerned then without there being somebody from a production company, without there being somebody from a network that's overseeing that and saying, hey, we as a production company that's been making reality television for 25, 30 years, we have a reputation to uphold. So we don't want anybody faking anything. Whereas, the common paranormal schmuck, no offense to anybody that's doing this, who thinks I can make my own show and put it on social media or on YouTube or whatever, how do we know that they're having that same type of integrity? And I know that that's a funny question to ask because a lot of people think that the TV shows didn't have the integrity. But you had people who were invested and had invested a lot of money into making sure that these things couldn't be exposed. Whereas on YouTube, TikTok, anything like that, you don't really have that same checks and balances.
I think that both of those aspects are simple catalysts when it comes to the paranormal. Again, I look at it from an entertainment aspect. So whether or not the evidence has been faked or whether or not the aspect is legitimate really does not contribute anything to my mindset for the field. What it does is it perpetuates interest in the field. So if you are watching Ghost Adventures and you want to act a fool like a Zach Bagans, but you're out there investigating, maybe you'll come to the understanding over time that the provoking mentality or the theatrics are not necessary to get good evidence. You're watching somebody faking evidence that's doing it on a TikTok platform or any place else, and you go out there and you're like, well, that's not really what happens in the field, but I love what I'm doing now because I did have some personal experiences. It contributes to the field. All these do, they're billboards. All these do provide themselves as billboards for people getting into this and hopefully finding their way to doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I don't think either one of them is for the aspiration of being the best at what you do in the field. I think both of them are moneymakers, one way, shape, or form, either for the production company or for the individuals in front of the camera, or both for that matter.
Yeah. Let's I think that the people who are moving to social media too, you're going to see how their content is going to be influenced too. It's not so much let's go do what we want and have creative control. Because to quote Bill Burr, the money listens. So a lot of these sponsors that were normally working with cable absolutely see that streaming is a thing now. Social media is a thing. So for ad revenue, they come over and want to be an ad sponsor there too. The thing is, and this is why you have to use certain words and can't use certain words on social media, because they're not going to want to sponsor you if it reflects poorly on their brand. So that could be talking about certain things in the paranormal that don't have happy endings, that you have to temper them now. So it may not be the oasis of creativity that it once was. So I just wanted to make that point. But following along in that, 2024, more and more and more. I remember there was a detente about 10 years ago where a lot of the drama in the paranormal, it used to be everybody's going to get a TV show and they were fighting over it, and they were bringing in, they were looking for as much content as possible. Then they kind of went to more of a casting type thing, but people were just going at each other tooth and nail. And there seemed to be, like I said, a detente there. For a little while, we lost that. And now it just seems to be a proliferation. It's back again. And it's mostly because of social media and that age-old thing where people are signaling that they want this to be a serious thing. And, the influencers are doing this and they're not doing credible scientific research. And as much as you seem to say, guys, take it in the vein where it's intended, you still have to have engaging personalities. I can't speak to who's faking what. And I know that there's a community out there that thrives on this to, point out these things. Is it even remotely feasible to put a camera on a bunch of people who just sit around for an hour asking for somebody to talk to them? I know we talked about this before, but, there is a hue and cry against influencers these days, because they cross the realm of entertainment. Everybody is faking everything. And I remember having this conversation, Tim, a long time ago with all the TV shows, and it's reared its ugly head again. So before we move on to the next thing, I just want to touch on that, get some thoughts from you guys.
You want to take that, Tom?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. It's we're in a new world now when it comes to the entertainment portion of the paranormal. And I think it was George who said that, or maybe it was Ken, that, anybody can just go out and do it now. Everybody thinks they know how to do it. And they can just open up their phone and film themselves doing it and go on YouTube and hope that they get 300 followers from it. And that just seems to be the easiest direction for it to go. And yeah, streaming channels, I think, are just going to go in a different direction now. And that's just the nature of it. Like I said, I think it's a fad that's come and gone, but maybe somebody on the internet will become so popular that it'll come full circle and some network will want to put them on television because of their following.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
The good part about that too is now you've got an a la carte approach. So you can choose what content you want to consume instead of the network just.
I think we lost your mic.
Yeah, we lost your mic.
Oh.
Big time there, Tim. Your audible just sounded like somebody was dragging it. No, I got to put you on mute there, Tim. You might want to exit and come back in.
See, the networks, they're coming after him.
That's
right.
him down.
Now you seem fine again, Tim. Go ahead. Nope. No. Yeah.
It's Lizzie.
With that.
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah. So you got me now, right?
There you go.
There
We
you
got
are.
you now.
Okay. So the idea being that now you can pick and choose what it is that you want to watch. So you can watch this service, you can watch this person's startup. But to go to Ken's point about will you be able to watch an actual paranormal investigation in its entirety, I would challenge anybody that thinks that that's the way to actually move this content forward. Get yourself enough followers on TikTok, again, as long as that lasts, or on Instagram, and say, we're going to go live from this location, and then go live, and then just let it go from the beginning to the end and see what the viewership is. And you can see as you're sitting there and nothing happens, those numbers are dropping off, or people are going to be saying, like, what am I watching this for? What's going on here? Because people that are consuming this content don't want to see the reality of what goes on. They just want to see the highlights.
Yeah, it's boring.
Well,
Yeah,
wait a minute.
they-
We're talking about, though, at the same time, we're talking about live where all of the shows were canned, and most of what they do on social media is canned. I mean, we do a live show on Sunday nights, yes, and our viewership is wonderful, but it's not to that level that you would see with some of these canned shows that are out there right now. Remember, they're adding in a lot of editing. They're adding in a lot of repeats to evidence being caught. They'll play it back and play it back and play it back. You're not doing that during a live. We've had live investigations where Ken has been out on location, and again, we get the viewership, but as Tim so succinctly said, it's something that people will drop off unless something is levitating. It's just not going to happen that way. But the bulk of what's going on out there is been recorded and edited. The music's been put in. Hey guys, we're going to go here and let's do the history first section of this hour or these 2 hours, and then the second hour they do what exactly has been framed out from the TV shows that were on the networks. They're just stealing the same concept, the same idea, and utilizing now in a different platform with no other overhead other than what the streaming services take from them, which could be considerable, but they're still making money hand over fist compared to what they were offered before. And I only heard bits and pieces about what the actual investigators on the TV shows were making, but did not sound like it was anything worthwhile unless you were a producer of one of these shows.
I can tell you, I got paid pretty well for what my role was, to the point where I had a conversation with John Tenney about working on Ghost Stalkers. And I was the behind the scenes researcher. And thank you, Deborah. Very proud of the work we did on that show. But I had a conversation years later with John Tenney about what he got paid. And I got more money per episode to just sit at home in my underwear and research the show than he and Chad got for actually being there and having to be the ones investigating and being on the camera.
Wow.
So yeah, that's not uncommon to have the behind the scenes people make more. But the other part of it too is, think about this too. If these folks want to go out and create their own shows and make their own shows, they've got to worry about how are they going to afford to pay for these locations now that are so used to getting a location fee from these shows for years and years and years. You want to go and film at a place, they're used to getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for one night's worth of filming, and now you're coming in saying, you know, we're just a YouTube show, we're just a social media channel. We don't really have the money to pay that. They're going to say, well, then we don't really have the time for you then.
Well, who else is going to pay then? Or are the property owners going to start to reduce those prices?
You would hope, but they are also, if you look at a place like the Lizzie Borden house, for example, you know, he can make more money by having people come in and take the tour than it does for shutting it down. So nobody's getting in there and making their own TV show anymore, you know, off their own dime. Not without paying $5,000 to get it.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about the media. So I want to move on to a couple other things here. But first, I think I want to give Tim a shot before I start getting into this. If there's anything that you wanted to bring to us and talk about that made an impact on you or a lot of other people last year.
I think one of the biggest things that I noticed about last year was we had a change in the mindset. As much as we're talking here about paranormal investigation shows, we've had a lot of people who have gotten away from the investigation side of things and gotten into just telling the story. And that's good, believe it or not, because that's actually something that's going to keep the interest going. And that's also what we have gone through in the paranormal for generations, is that waning and ebbing of how much do people care about the science and how much do people care about the story. And to be at a time period where we care more about the story, that benefits everybody because, you know, Tom, people are tuning into your podcast, one of the top podcasts on the subject, because they want to hear the story. They don't care. They can't see the person going in and investigating. They just want to hear about what happened, and they want to hear a good storyteller telling them a story. And that's what the paranormal has always been for us. And we are doing a great job overall of people getting back to that. And that's what's going to keep it alive, you know, pun intended.
And that's a good time every week, ladies and gentlemen. I'll come up with a new Extremely Strange right here on Paranormal.
Wow, he had that button ready to go.
Where I tell stories.
I'm just setting it up for you to knock it out of the park.
Wow. I was like, you know, I took a swing at that one. Tom, story man, go ahead and follow up on that.
Yeah, really stepped into that one. So what Tim's telling me is I'm going to have a lot more competition on the podcast front. Great. I think like that might be a direction that it's going, is that people are going to start telling stories. I think there's still some TV shows out there that tell stories more than show investigations, you know, and some of those stories involve investigators. And maybe that's a way for it to go. But what you were saying earlier about, you know, the shows being produced and everything like that, like, I think that's a part of it too, is the production quality of these shows. It's going to go down because it's going to be on the internet. I think, you know, a lot of people aren't going to produce things as well as they were on TV, and that would go for podcasts and things like that as well. So yeah, a lot of big differences. Maybe storytelling is the way it's going to go. I prefer that myself. I mean, one of the things I liked about the reality paranormal shows was when they were telling a story. The investigation kind of went along with the story they were trying to tell, and they would mix in some history in there, things like that, tell you about the past, you know, for the location or whatnot. Maybe, you know, we're just getting away from the investigation part a little bit and heading more towards the stories. And it's like, you know, everybody loves to sit around the campfire and listen to a good spooky story. So maybe that is the direction we're going in.
But, you know, I've got a question for you about that then. Do you think, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Ken, but I was going to say, do you think that maybe we're getting away from the investigation part of it because we don't need to anymore? That the people who are interested in consuming this content believe. So they don't need to see things that are going to make them
Mhm.
believe. Now they just want to hear more about it. And I think if that's the case, we're in a really good position for the paranormal going forward, because the more believers, the better off it is for us to not have to deal with that side of things.
Yeah, I think 20 years of evidence reveals on television and stuff. I think people have gotten used to it now. It's a story they've already seen and heard. So yeah, so maybe this is the next evolution, is to telling a full story, and supposed to, waiting, 60 minutes for them to finally, play the 3 EVPs that they caught at the end of the show. Yeah,
Right.
because the investigation part,
It's
it is
it's
boring, but in the beginning, nobody knew what paranormal investigation looked like, so it was exciting. But now I think maybe we've just oversaturated it, and this is where we're at now.
Well, it's kind of cyclical, because some of my favorite shows were the recreation shows. Not all of them. Some of them were horrible, but some of these shows, History Channel, where they would recreate stories, and they had the budget to do it well. And then compilation shows where they show you 8 minutes of a claim somewhere, like the old Sighting show. Those are some of my favorite
Mhm.
shows. Nobody was investigating,
Yeah,
but it just
mine too.
kind of it spurs your own imagination, and it makes you more curious about it. So I personally enjoy the stories, for whatever they're worth. It's a story. If you're going to say, well, that couldn't have been because the camera here, and it's just kind of like, just listen to the story.
Yeah.
We're just telling a story here, One thing I wanted to turn to real quick, and we have to do this, is UAP. Big year for UAP. A couple of things that happened. A near miss with a commercial airliner in New York City this year. And among 757 UAP investigated by the Pentagon's ARROW, the Anomaly Resolution Office, during the year, 81 of those reports originated from U.S. military operations. And people are being followed or shadowed by these things. This came to light a couple of years ago with the Go Fast video, etc., and so forth. So more and more and more, these things happen to be intruding on airspace. And we'll get into drones in a little bit. But more and more and more, there are intrusions, and more people are coming forward. Some of them, military pilots, what we would term credible witnesses. And we were talking to Katie Page from the Beyond Skinwalker show a week ago, and we got into this a little bit, where right now, regardless of what the origin of these things are, they present a hazard more and more and more. And that's something that we should be thinking about in terms of finding out what the origins are, or if letting everyone else know as well. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about that, and how this is ramping up, and how you see it, and the whole disclosure conversation, have at it.
Go ahead, you go first, Tim, this time.
Well, one of my concerns was, to your point, Ken, is it something that's happening more and we have something to be concerned about? Or is it just that the climate of talking about this has changed, and these things that have been going on forever are now something that people can actually discuss? And just in the people that I've talked to in the aerospace industry have said it is more. It is more than we've ever experienced before. While people are more comfortable talking about it now, there are a high number of these incidents that are happening more frequently. So if that's the case, what about it is causing this to happen? And you can get into the scientific nuts and bolts idea of why you think that might be, or you can get into the metaphysical idea of why that might be. But the bottom line is, I think we're paying more attention to what's going on in the skies. And as such, either we're going to see more of what's already been happening, or more is going to start happening because it knows that we're paying attention.
Yeah. Okay. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, whatever it is, it if it's got that kind of intelligence, the way it moves, then it must know that now we know about them, and they're not trying to hide themselves anymore, if that's what they were doing. But it's definitely more prevalent in the media, and now we know that politicians are actually getting spooked by these things a little bit, because more and more credible people like you said, military pilots, people like that are coming forward, and they're being encouraged to come forward now, where before they used to be told not to talk about these things. So that makes me feel like something's going on here. Does the government know more than they're telling us? Probably. Are they covering something up? Perhaps. Do these reports sometimes come up at convenient times to steal headlines from things they don't want us to hear about? Possibly, but I found it's very interesting that they're going as far as having not only congressional hearings, but they're actually allocating budgets to study what these things are and how dangerous they could be. What's going on? Why are they getting so close to things like military bases and, jet planes and battleships and things? Like, what are they doing that for? And, this technology is obviously not coming from another government or another country. So, what is it and what is it up to? Those are big questions that need to be researched.
There was a point I wanted to. I'll hold off on it for a minute because I'm going to circle back to something Tim pointed out that I was going to make the same point. But real quickly on these hearings, essentially what we're seeing is whistleblowers coming forward with some remarkable stories about exotic aircraft and biological entities, and we have them, and and everybody perks up about this. But even during the hearings, there are certain things that can't be disclosed, and then they start talking about skiffs, and they're going to go in there with the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and they're going to get to the bottom of these things. So what comes out of this? There was one hearing on the 13th and another on the 18th of November last year. And we have the idea that everybody agrees there's got to be more disclosure. Everybody agrees there has to be more transparency. Everybody agrees that these things have to be taken seriously. So not to be a cynic about the whole thing, but is that really going to get anywhere? Because a lot of people are really encouraged to hear these stories, but I'm not sure if it's because it validates what they always thought or wanted to think, or we're actually getting information on this. Because everything in government is so compartmentalized. There's got to be somebody who knows the whole story. But the people they're talking to just seem to know their little end of it, and we're not getting a full picture. And I don't know if we're going to get a full picture on this, Tim.
Well, one thing I would caution you about is when you say that we're hearing this remarkable stuff that's coming from these hearings and it's getting taken seriously by members of Congress, also keep in mind there are members of Congress who think that there are Jewish space lasers that are shooting people from the sky, and that there's weather control happening, and that there's Democrats drinking pizza shop basements. So, you really can't say that just because Congress believes it, it's necessarily believable. But the biggest thing that's come out of this that I've noticed is the way the rest of the media has covered it. And there's no better way to look at that than your local evening news, and in our case, the Providence News, where it used to be that UFO stories came at the end of the news broadcast, the last 2 minutes, and there's somebody in Coventry who says they saw some lights in the sky. Ooh, VT phone home. It's gone away from that now, and instead it's the lead story on the news, or the lead national story, where they're talking about today Congress did this and this happened, and it's changed the whole way that people have the conversation about this now. That you've got the regular everyday person that is saying, I had this conversation with somebody in the line at a checkout at the supermarket, because here's the National Enquirer with UFOs on the front. And they said, I get my UFO. The person in front of me said, I get my UFO news from the New York Times now. And that just showed how much of a sea change there's been. And more than anything, that's what's going to help us going forward in the future is the change in tone of how we talk about it.
Yeah, I would just caution everybody against the messengers. Maybe that's what you're trying to say, or maybe it's not. But when I see these hearings, who's in the front row? George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, all the documentarians have front row seats. I don't know if they're sleeping outside or, waiting for the doors to open. I don't know. But It is, well, Greg says, taking the attention away from something else. If you can tell me, Greg, what that something else is, we'll entertain it. But, I don't want to get into a they said or, whoever the mysterious theys are out there. But I think, okay, let's go to the drone situation. I want to hit this real quick before we go to break. And Tim touched on this. Okay, so there have been 5,000 reports. I think maybe that was just in New Jersey. I can't give you a percentage of those that were the actual drones that caused this. I don't discount people have seen something that to them just doesn't seem right. Whatever the drones were that don't look right, the ones the size of SUVs. But how many of that 5,000 are people launching their drones up either to find the other drones or to become part of the story? How many people looking up are actually seeing airplanes? How many, if 10 people report the same drone, that's 10 sightings. So we haven't broken that. We say 5,000 as that number. And you talked about it a little bit, Tim. I want you to follow up on this. When something like this happens, people, they look to the sky. They're not in their phones. They all want to see something. I've seen none of them. How much of this, Tim, do you think could be part of a social contagion?
Well, I think certainly when you're hearing all these news reports about it, you want to be part of that story. And so you're going to go out there and look up and film what's ever in the sky. And if you're not somebody who's a regular sky watcher, you don't know. I mean, all you have to do is look and see what happens on social media every time Starlink passes by in the sky. And everybody's like, oh, did you see this weird thing? It's like, it's Starlink. We all know what Starlink looks like by now. Why don't you know? And then you've also got people who are, out there when the Northern Lights are out there. And I've got to see 5,000 pictures of somebody posting the Northern Lights. Like, we get it. It's out there. We all see it. But it's because they want to be part of the story, that they want to just get out there and film whatever. So they're going to misinterpret things. And they're not trained observers of this, like the people who have had their eyes on the skies for a long time. And what's interesting about this is you've got all these things happening in the sky, but are you getting more radio signals from SETI? Are you getting more people seeing things in the sky from a pilot's perspective? No, you're seeing a lot of things that are happening in the airspace that human beings on the ground would have control of. So unless it's, and my theory is this is actually alien beings from another planet operating man-made drones themselves to try to throw us off. But you just get a lot of untrained eyes looking at the sky.
Well, and you know how it is, Tom. It's when there is an absence of facts, the void gets filled by conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. That's just what we do, and we've always done it that way. We've heard about hiding nukes. We've heard about, like Tim said, it's actually the aliens who are flying something that is more familiar to us. Apparently, there's a lot of budget cuts that the aliens are going through, that they have to have batteries and propellers now. Being that neither here nor there, I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg thing. We talk about disclosure, but the other thing people have to understand is for the last 2 years, around Christmas time, there have been drone reports at air bases, military air bases, commercial airports. This is not something new, but it just seems this year, for whatever reason, someone got the ball rolling on this. But, I don't want to go in too many different directions. But again, the void is always filled with a conspiracy.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to the UAPs we were discussing, I think that's something to be investigated. But the drone sightings that we've heard about recently, I think are just somebody saw something, the media and social media ran with it, and then everybody ran outside and wanted to become part of the story. Drones are a big hobby now, and they're a rather new hobby. within the last couple of years, a lot of people are getting into flying drones. They like doing it. People are building their own drones, and they look great at night because they light up different colors, and you can fly them over things that you might not normally be able to go into on foot. So military bases and things like that. So I think people looking up and seeing these drones, and there's just more of them now around. I mean, we have people who do synchronized drone shows now.
Oh,
and some of those people are probably practicing or working on new technologies, and people look up and see it. It's 2 miles away from their house, but they can still see it up in the sky. So, I just think this is just a lot of people confusing things, and it's coincidence. And I think it's just all human made,
I think there's something, whatever it is. I'm not saying that, whatever's at the heart of this that's unusual doesn't exist. But, the other thing that played into this, I think it was 2019 when the FAA said you could fly drones at night. That wasn't always the case. But a lot of what you see flying seems to fly within the parameters that have been set forth, no higher than 500 feet. There's a couple of others I'm missing right there. But as I said, it's fascinating because I think you do see what social contagion is like. When somebody, I mean, whether it was in the 19th century in Rhode Island with vampires or whatever, you see a social contagion. People, whatever it is now. And, now they sprayed some drone begone, and now nobody's worried about drones anymore.
Yeah. I was saying the other day, the drones are crop circles. It's the new crop circles. Everybody's seeing them everywhere all of a sudden, but it's just some man-made thing. That's all. It's not the aliens.
What do we got for time? About 3 minutes. This may not take long. Someone by the name of Kai Dickens, she is a woman, came out with something called the Telepathy Tapes podcast, which briefly replaced Joe Rogan as the number one podcast on Spotify, I guess.
I like her already.
This podcast speculated that nonverbal autistic children possess telepathic abilities. This is her claim now. Of course, she got pushback from the scientific community saying that, these were basically pseudoscientific claims. But this became the most popular podcast on some streaming services in the United States and the United Kingdom. So this idea kind of latched on, got a very enthusiastic reception, and has been promoted by, no surprise here, Joe Rogan, who will believe just about anything these days. So, I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't think you guys are. We all probably need one. But this idea that where does something like that come from? I don't know. I assume there's been some testing in order to make that claim that, some autistic children have telepathic abilities. Where does that, what category do you put that in?
The idea of it or her?
No. I mean, the very idea of what she is claiming, and probably more so that this, again, like the drones, has just grown into this monumental thing with everybody jumping on board, thinking this is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we do know that some people who are on the spectrum do have some abilities that a regular normal person doesn't have. The whole Rain Man effect thing where, they're able to remember certain dates from hundreds of years ago. They can count how many toothpicks are dumped out of a box in split seconds. They can do math like faster than a computer. So, is it that outrageous that perhaps there are some people with these kinds of abilities, and we're learning more and more about situations like this. We're learning more and more about conditions like autism every day. So maybe she is onto something, but I haven't, this isn't my lane. So, but I would love to see if she actually presents any kind of documented evidence and it would have to be, peer reviewed by
Some
so
type
many
of
others.
empirical data.
Yeah. But is it something that's I think is totally cuckoo? No, probably not. I mean, I think as human beings, as animals, we do have some sort of abilities that we may not be in touch with anymore. That's my look at it.
Well, Tim, take us right. We're going to break here. You got any thoughts on this or anything like it that suddenly sort of takes hold of the public consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of these rainbow children is really anything new. It's something people have talked, or crystal children, some people refer to them as too. It's really nothing new. I think that when the brain might have deficiencies in certain areas, then maybe other areas that we don't normally access can open up as a way to compensate for it.
Yep, good point.
Well, George, if you want to, I guess we had a couple of minutes. If you want to weigh in on some thoughts, I wanted to tell everybody, first of all, you're listening to Dead Air Full Spectrum. Thank you. And we're just getting warmed up. In the second hour, we're going to have some interesting conversations. So, to say the least. So,
some
over to
tough
you,
conversations.
George.
Yeah, some tough conversations also, but conversations that we can't ignore over the past 12 months that need to be addressed. And I know some of you are actually asking about it already in the chat, so we'll bring that up for sure as well. But we will be back on the other side of our break here, guys. And I want to thank you again for joining us, our very special guest tonight, Tom Stewart, Tim Weisberg, as we continue in memoriam for the last year, 2024. It was a hell of a year, I'll tell you that much. All right, guys, thank you. We'll be back for the second hour in about 3 minutes. You're watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. Hang in there with us. We'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
And if you want to see your name in lights, just like all these fine people, all you got to do is join our Patreon account, Dead Air Paranormal, and we would love to have you join us on our town halls each and every Monday night at 8 p.m. That'll be tomorrow night. You guys can certainly come and be on screen with us and talk topic of the paranormal, have some laughs, and just enjoy the heck out of like-minded people. So make sure you guys do check it out. Welcome back to Dead or Alive on our second hour, and our very special guests Tom Stewart and Tim Weisberg have rejoined us. And I don't know where you want to take it from here, Ken. I'm kind of scared.
And you should be. Now we're going to get into some, it wasn't all just mystery, but I want to start off with this before we move on to something with a little more meat on it.
Oh, wait, before
artificial
we do that,
intelligence.
Before we do that, Ken, what's going on here next week?
Oh, yeah, real briefly, I'm reaching out to some of our greater Los Angeles friends, and I want to invite them on and share with us a little bit about what's happening out in California to try to get a legitimate picture of it from the people who are actually living it. I think it's important for us to know what is actually happening and what they're experiencing. One that, to my knowledge, has been evacuated. The rest are just sort of in a safer now pattern, but there's a lot of information, disinformation, misinformation. And all these people are tied to the paranormal, but more importantly, they're human beings going through this thing. So we're going to see if they want to or are capable and willing, to come on and just, tell us a little bit about it. And maybe, at the same time, have a little fun with them too. And, take a night to just, share some good tidings for a change. So we'll see what happens for that next week. So thanks for reminding me, George.
Thank you.
All right. So before we do anything, I want to get this out of the way. Artificial intelligence and the paranormal. And more and more and more as AI becomes so commonplace, and I'd love to get your thoughts on AI in general, if you want to share that. But let me just read off some things here. What they're saying is AI algorithms could analyze vast amounts of video, audio, and photographic evidence from investigations, identifying patterns or anomalies that might go unnoticed by humans, number one. Number two, AI-assisted software can detect EVPs in audio more effectively by filtering background noise. Number three, machine learning can analyze historical data from known haunted locations to predict where paranormal activity is most likely to occur. And this is an interesting one. Some theorists suggest AI could serve as a digital medium, enabling communication with spirits or other entities. Investigators have speculated that AI might interact with residual energy in haunted locations, potentially acting as a catalyst for phenomena. So that's a mouthful right there. So guys, will go to Tim, and you can all, I know you all have something to say on this, but Tim, if you want to get us rolling on this about the speculation about AI suddenly coming into our particular world, our niche, I should say. It's already in our world, but this particular niche.
I will tell you, anything that adds any kind of intelligence into the paranormal world is a good thing, because a lot of times we're sorely lacking in it. But I would say that the good thing about, and I've used AI in terms of, data collection for just in general work that I do. And I can tell you it is not foolproof. So if we want to utilize all these tools as a way to try to help lessen the load for human beings and to try to pick up things that human beings are going to miss, we have to understand that human beings are still going to need to go over that data and the methodology and how AI found it in order to be able to really verify. We're not at the point yet where it can be 100% trusted. And as such, it's a learning curve for us as much as it's a learning curve for the programs themselves. But anything that can help is helpful. not to be redundant, but I think the downside of it is that it will democratize things in a way where we lose some of the emotional aspect of what it is that we do, which I think is a big part of why we have the interactions that we have. Without a human being there to observe, would this stuff even happen? And without a human being there to feel the result of what's going on, would the spirits even have the need to make this kind of contact? So I think there's a lot of questions that will have to be answered, and we're a long way off from being able to just turn things over to these AI programs to be able to do what it is that we do.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of wondering whether or not,
guys, Tom, what do you think?
Go ahead, George. You about to say something?
Yeah, we've seen probably going back about 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, where people were having very strange reactions with their Alexa, where things were coming across that were saying things or asking questions that didn't pertain to the homeowners. And you wonder as to whether or not that could possibly be an interesting concept to bring along for an investigation, whether or not Wi-Fi is a necessity in the midst of doing that, but to see whether or not a AI chat of some sort could interact based upon whatever they are picking up energy-wise. Just the same as a digital recorder can pick up an energy imprint, you wonder whether or not these AI devices can do the same, whether you're just using a simple laptop or a device simple as Alexis, which I've had one now for the last 5 years sitting up there that's completely unplugged. I don't even use it. But wondering whether or not the application of these artificial intelligence devices might assist by, well, I say removing the human factor, even though it was a human who generated the device, but you wonder whether or not it could be manipulated. We've all heard tell of people who have had phantom phone calls from the dead, and they're manipulating electricity that way, lights going on and off. Can that be something manipulated also by the spirits? I'm curious. Tim?
Well, I mean, I think that's entirely possible. But the other part of it too is how much of this will learn from the spirits that it's investigating and then try to replicate those spirits. So is it actually the spirit that's doing it, or is it AI, assuming the mantle of that person? Because it was able to scour in seconds everything that this person ever did that existed. I mean, I can go into Chat GPT right now and be like, have a conversation with me as if you were Lizzie Borden talking from the other side, and it's going to spit out exactly what Lizzie Borden would say in that situation.
Yeah, that's kind of frightening.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, the other thing is, if these things are going to be implemented, are they going to have a bias if they're programmed to favor paranormal explanations for things? Is this going to be totally objective, or are false positives where it's like, yes, I saw a shadow figure. Well, I didn't document it, so it becomes an experience. Does that then get placed into a thing that says definitive shadow figure at this particular place when it comes time to predict potential paranormal activity? And I assume that means in this space, in this room, at this time, on this day. I mean, I don't know, spitballing on this thing, but between that and taking the human element away, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I'll just withhold judgment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That I think there's a human element that still has to be involved when it comes to the communication part. I think AI could definitely help with sorting through data a lot quicker than a human can. But I don't think that AI is going to care. When we see a shadow or we hear a voice or we something move, to us, our human reaction is, oh, that is something. But to AI, it's just collecting data. It doesn't know that something is paranormal or something is supernatural or anything, And so I don't know if I think AI will mostly be used for data collection and help us get to conclusions quicker. I don't know if it's going to be any good for predicting. I don't think it will be any. I don't know if it'll be any good for communication either. And I really don't think that the people who design artificial intelligence are even going to use it or design it for this type of research. I just feel like they've got
I mean,
bigger fish in mind.
Yeah, you're right.
Someone will hack it though. Someone else will step in and come up with it. But the downside is, to go to what Tom was saying too about that human aspect of it, artificial intelligence is only as good as the human prompts that we put into it at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it's all like, if you're going to use it, Ken, to take onto an investigation and say, all right, I want you to look for anything that's a shadow person, you're already, by putting in that prompt, you're already giving it that bias, because that's what you're telling it to look for.
Yeah,
where
because the AI thinks the AI doesn't know what a shadow figure is until you tell it what a shadow figure is. So it's going to think like you think, as opposed to objectively.
It will teach itself by searching the internet to see what it can find about shadow figures. And as we know, that information can be, incorrect in a lot of times. So you need to tell it exactly what it is that you need to do. And as such, you might get a lot of frustration from people, because it's not going to give you back the results that you're looking for, because you're not giving it the good enough prompts or the simplified enough prompts for it to be able to do what you're trying to do without that bias, because we're going to have that bias in the questions that we put in.
What about the aspect of applying the AI when it comes to EVPs? There is software, I know Ken uses one on a regular basis, that can tell where on the spectrum the audio is coming from. Is it a human being, or is it something that's outside of that spectrum? And if that's applied through AI, when you upload or download your audio, that they could sift through it and be able to decipher what is and what is not human audio that's coming across there. Would that be an applicable use for AI for paranormal investigating?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When it comes to the data, that's where it could really come in handy, that it can find things that we'll miss. It can keep track of things that we can't keep track of.
And dismiss what
doesn't. A better job at that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would do a much better job than we can of that. And it could also, identify certain sounds that we mistake for being an EVP. The AI knows, nope, that was someone's stomach growling, or that was a floor creak. It wasn't a baby crying. It might be able to fine tune and know the difference between certain sounds too.
Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I want to just push back on this. The idea of, and this sounds like AI used for predictability, and that's kind of counterintuitive to this whole thing, because first of all, most of this is performed by human beings, and we're certainly not perfect creatures. We're kind of volatile in our emotions and personalities. And if these are former people, and they retain those characteristics in another dimension, or however you want to frame it, they carry those characteristics of volatility as well. This is why you can't tell a spirit, okay, I'm going to be here at 8:00 tomorrow night. I'll meet you back in this room. Okay, so be there. We're moody, we're emotional, we're all over the place. So what is it about the predictability of this that suddenly AI somehow is going to control this type of thing and give us repeatability? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but I mean, we're using AI because we want to take our emotions out of things, but yet we're asking AI to put those aside and go after something that is also not consistent. I mean, when it
comes to predictability, perhaps Long-term studies could be used with AI. So you have a haunted location, you set up some AI, and you just let it monitor 24 hours a day for 7 days, 30 days, whatever you want. And then that could probably give you a better picture of what's
Yeah.
really going on, and
It
maybe
doesn't
give you
get
some
tired.
predictability. You know, it
Yeah.
could say, you know, it only happens when it's raining out, or it only happens at 3 a.m., or things like that, where it's really hard for a human to be, you know, up 24 hours a day investigating. So,
Right.
you know, there could be some applications there.
And one way that can help is if you think about how many times over the years we've tried to have these paranormal databases, these repositories for people to send reports of whatever factors it was that they had going on. If we all started keeping better reports of that with, you know, the weather conditions, and we don't even need to have all of that, because what we can do is, as long as we're just putting the date, the time, and the location of where these things are happening, these AI programs can go across and scour the internet and find all of these reports and say, you know, okay, well, based on the reports that we saw, if you're at, you know, the Oliver House, it's on a Wednesday night when it's 45 degrees and the wind is coming south to southwest, so your best chances of having something happen. And then we know to go there at that time and then see if we have any kind of interaction. So it can take all of that external data of things that we don't have time to look up. What was going on the, you know, USGS survey at the time? What was going on in the seismology survey? What was going on in the forecast? What was going on with the phases of the moon? It can combine all that data at once and give us that better picture to tell us, here's the ideal conditions to be able to have something happen based on how other people have had experiences happen. And that's something that we just don't have the time or the capacity to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
haven't
amazing.
gotten, and we haven't gotten to that level yet. That technology, at least I'm not aware of, where you could connect that AI to cameras that don't blink, that don't get tired, that don't start having things in the peripheral vision that's just fuzzy and you know, attribute it to their imagination. It's just going to, especially in a location, in a situation where there are residual haunts, where they come in on a regular basis, and you've got that viewing it until an anomaly comes up, and it could document that anomaly. And it may just document that anomaly in squares, in boxes, motion boxes, but they could keep that record, as Tom was saying, for 30 days and be able to see, are there conditions to create this each and every time? Something we as investigators, again, because of the human condition, cannot do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it may be a good contribution down the way. And there are people out there right now who have cams going and running regularly if you want to check them out. But again, we cannot maintain watching those cams 24/7. It'd be something that we could miss. Some people may be watching it at different times and may catch something. But again, even when you're watching, you're blinking, you're turning away, sipping your coffee, whatever it may be, where this thing is vigilant and keeping a constant view on what's going on and the activity involved with it. So I think it could benefit us and benefit this field in the long run.
And hopefully somebody with the brains to
Yeah,
design something like this will get involved.
Yeah,
Well,
without
you need
saying,
a
you know,
large sample size.
yeah. Someone
You know,
wants
you
to
need
look
a
at
large
how can I
sample
make money
size
off
where-
of this?
Right.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. It'll come down to the money.
All righty then. Moving on to A Tale of Two Places. One doesn't seem to have a happy ending, and the other one, so far, so good. Probably the biggest story that started locally, went regionally, went nationally, and eventually internationally was the goings on at the Conjuring House this year. Okay, so quick basis. Jacqueline Nunez purchased the house in 2022, continuing its legacy as a destination for paranormal enthusiasts. She hosted events, tours, investigations. We know that. I'm going to run through this in somewhat of a timeline. There are a lot of things that some of us know about the place, no one else does. It's not that we're necessarily being secretive. It's just To me, it is what it is at this point. I'll be honest with you. First of all, let's get into the accusation of Jason Hawes in an assassination attempt on her life, as well as harassing and damaging her reputation. And, Jason's done some videos on this. But this was something that's been proven absolutely false. His truck was in the driveway. It wasn't his truck. The owner said it wasn't him. It was me. I was leaving the residence. So if you have, again, any thoughts on, he denied the allegations, reported the harassment to Rhode Island law enforcement, and maintained that he had no direct involvement in the incidents described by Nunez. So there's any thoughts on that situation? And I know that, it's been a while, but I don't know, guys, how you feel about that and that part of the situation.
Yeah, I think Jason Hawes is the Jason Statham of paranormal. He's very sneaky. He'll come right up behind you, and before you know it, it's over. But yeah, I feel like Ms. Nunez, she decided to drag Jason into this just because she knew it would get her more attention, which is what a narcissist does. And, she wanted the attention. She wanted to get more eyes and ears on her and the things that she was spewing out on social media. And so she brought Jason into it. And I don't know, maybe she was hoping that he would, lose control or, go back after her in some way. I don't know, but yeah, and I think Jason has showed some really good composure through the whole thing, based on the things that she accused him of, and and of course all the things she's been saying and doing to his daughter as well. He is, I think he's taken the high road really well with this, and he's done all the right things by contacting the authorities and by putting out videos to answer things in a mature way. So good for him for doing things like that.
I don't know, Tim, is it just that? It can't be just for attention, because, some of the manifestos that she shared with all of us suggest that, there are other things at play here. Would you agree?
Yeah, what we're seeing here is someone's mental breakdown in real time. And as such, while I appreciate Tom's thoughts on that, I think that I think he's just giving her a little bit too much credit in terms of organized thought when it comes to this. I think we're just seeing reactionary, emotional kind of flights of fancy that you've got to figure out. As he pointed out, you're dealing with a narcissist. You're dealing with somebody who thinks that they are the most intelligent person on the planet, that was put here for a specific purpose of saving humanity. So everybody else is going to be a protagonist. I'm sorry, an antagonist to that. So you've just, I think you're just zeroing in on him because he has the power and the reach to make these videos that get a response. Now, the other side of that too is he could have, as much as he has taken the high road, and I love Jason, don't get me wrong, but he could have not addressed these things at all and just left it alone. So what you have now is you do have kind of a self-perpetuating situation, not his intention, of course, but I don't think he understood the depth of her sickness. And so what you're seeing now is somebody who has just had to advance that narrative in her own mind as to, what is going on? Why are these people against me? Why is everybody against me? And I think the most telling post that we got out of all of the crazy posts that were posted was the one that happened as many of us were coming back from the Michigan Paracon, the morning of. I'm sitting there in the airport with Jason, with Satori and Cody, with everybody else, and we're all getting ready to get on this little puddle jumper that takes us back to Detroit. And that's when the post came out that was supposedly written by Elizabeth Hurley, the actress. And Elizabeth Hurley and Jacqueline are supposedly in this relationship. And Elizabeth Hurley is saying that anybody who tries to stand in the way of Jacqueline and her being together from the Conjuring house will be killed.
Yes.
And that's when things took a turn where, and that's, immediately Facebook took down the account. And that's when things took a turn when it got to the point where it's scary, because it's one thing to think that Jason Hawes is coming to kill you. It's another thing when you are threatening to kill somebody else. And whether it's you or Elizabeth Hurley, you're still the person that posted it. And that's when it took a turn to become dangerous. I think what happened in the later months, the ensuing months, being institutionalized, having the DUI situation in which she, and I don't mean to step on your timeline. I'm trying to take this, step by step, but I think what you've seen is that further breakdown that has reached the point of just curious anomaly to outrightly dangerous situation for both herself and others.
Well, I think what's disturbing is that small shred of lucidity that's left. For example, when she said, "I hope you die," or, and then follows with it is that there's nothing you can do to me for hoping. So there's just enough lucidity there to be shrewd enough to know, it can be perceived as a threat, but
she walks the line.
It's not really a threat.
And there's
So
a vindictiveness in it.
Mhm.
The vindictiveness in it, the knowing how to tweak the buttons of the people who were involved, and knowing how to get them to respond when they're trying to not respond to her. She knows the buttons to push. So that does show that there is some lucidity in there, but also, how many people who have been outright insane have also been geniuses too. I mean, clearly Unabomber was crazy, but he also was a genius. So there's going to be that balance of, being able to take that illness and utilize it in a way that's going to be the most effective toward others.
Mm-hmm. All right. The next thing will just, the unpaid wages to employees for their work. They stated lack of professional conduct, and I will, have everybody, they've talked about this occasionally on this show, so you can seek those out. I certainly don't want to speak for them on that. These are just the claims. A misrepresentation of their roles in public forum, where there's just been untruths about, who quit, who resigned, who was fired, and so forth. I suppose at the heart of this is Brian Dancero, who was accused of stealing $3,000 from the coffers at the Conjuring House. And as proof, she offered that John Arnold, who died in the 1800s and is, one of the alleged spirits at the house, informed her of this. And in my mind, this was the first hint to me. Well, there was the Hawes thing too, but this idea of spirits telling, the communicating with the spirits and them giving her information about everybody. Brian, following his dismissal, filed a complaint with the Department of Labor and Training seeking $9,000 in unpaid wages. The claim was contested, no surprise there. And there have been, again, many manifestos talking about him besmirching his reputation and his character. And I guess the thing people come to is there are cameras all over the place, including that gift shop. So why aren't those produced? Again, rhetorical question, because we know why they haven't been produced at this point. But now we're getting into the idea where this is not fun and games anymore because someone has lost work, lost wages. She claims on Channel 12 that he has been paid. My understanding is something different.
He refuted that.
So, I mean, I don't know. Let's just take it at that point. Just some feelings and thoughts on that, guys, if you have any. I mean,
well,
yeah, what
I'll
more
say
can be
this.
said? Go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, I'll say this. This isn't the 1700s. Spectral evidence isn't going to be admissible in court. So when it gets a hearing, if it hasn't already, and it gets to the point where you have to produce proof to the labor board as to why this is, then they're going to want to see that video footage. And the testimony of a spirit is not going to be enough. However, it's also going to be on Brian to be able to produce proof that he is owed that money to begin with. And so it's all going to come down to who has the most factual part. All the mental illness, all of the spirit communication, all of that isn't going to come into play. It's just going to be about who has the receipts to bring with them to that hearing. And that's going to decide it. The other part of it, though, is that you now have other agencies that have been involved. So it's not just the Department of Labor or whatever you guys call it in Rhode Island. It's also the local police have been involved in situations now. The Board of Selectmen or Town Council, whatever it is, have been involved in that as well. So now you're seeing people who aren't going to put up with hearsay evidence from a ghost. When it comes time to be able to prove these claims, they have to operate in absolutes. And if these absolutes exist, these absolutes would have been produced already.
Yeah.
Well, there's discovery too. Whatever you have to prove your point against this gentleman, his defense will be required to see that as well. So you gotta come clean with everything. What were you going to say, Tom?
Yeah, the whole thing is just such a huge shame. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know every nuance of the story. I only know what people have told me, what I've read, what I've seen happen online and such. But it's just, again, it's classic narcissist actions where these people publicly quit on her. And so she immediately had to try and flip the story from it being on them and not on her. And she knows what audience is going to support those people that quit. And so I feel like I really do think that she thinks she is the smartest person in the room and she thinks about things before she does them. So to say that, oh, the evidence is a ghost told me it happened, that's going to appeal to the people who might be supporting those who quit. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like she really does think things through like that. You know, I'm going to post something. Who's going to read it? I need to get their supporters to see my side of it. And what can I say to do that? Let me bring a ghost into this, which obviously isn't going to stand up in court. It's not even going to be allowed into a court. But I feel like that's kind of like what she's doing. And that narrative did start. A lot of people started saying maybe she is talking to the ghost. She started claiming she's a medium all of a sudden. And, you know, and then people were saying maybe it's the spirits in the house that are causing her to lose her mental capabilities and stuff. So, you know, she definitely got the ball rolling on a lot of stuff there. And part of me thinks that she might have done it, you know, on purpose, you know, and it's just a shame what she's put everybody through. All you had to do was just do the right thing and pay your employees, give them the proper insurances you're supposed to have, safety you're supposed to have. Like, it's just easy stuff to do, and you wouldn't have any of these issues. But she just thought she was above having to do all of that. It's a shame.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, too, I will say to Tom's point about the people who were saying, well, it's the house. The house is causing this. First of all, never think that about any haunted location, because that's just giving a person an excuse. But also the other part of it too is I've heard the theory that this is being done because she's in over her head and she can't afford to sell. You know, she needs to be able to amp the reputation up of the place to be able to sell it, to try to recoup how much money she's lost by putting into it, because it's not worth as much as it was before. And that's bogus too, because I can tell you what the offer. Well, I won't tell you because it was, you know, told to me off the record, but I know that there was a significant offer made through Matt Rife's people to be able to buy that house. And he's not the only person that's reached out to try to make an offer to that house that is significantly more than what she paid for it. So all of these theories that people are coming up with to try to excuse it or to try to dismiss it and make it less than what it is, it's bad. And not only is it bad, but it's setting a tone because of the spotlight that it's gotten for people who own these haunted locations about, well, gee, do I even want to let people in? Do I even want to turn this into a tourist attraction or something where people can have access to it, when this is the kind of person that people are going to assume that I am when I'm now the owner of a haunted location as well. So it's having repercussions beyond just this particular location.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in dealing with this thing, to be honest with you, and I still feel this way. I hope the woman gets or recognizes and gets the help that she needs. I still feel that way. But that being said, you know, that thing is almost exhausted at this point. And I mean, we can speculate what's going to happen to the property. But I mean, this whole thing has become a cottage industry for social media unto itself. And I say that recognizing here we are tonight talking about it on social media. So, but I mean, this has brought out some of the worst instincts in people who honestly aren't clear about what has transpired that you haven't read about, and specifically people trying to help her, who ended up being the most put upon people, ironically enough. And this is what people don't understand because, again, we still hear you guys. I don't know. I mean, I don't follow it, but if it comes up on the feed, you know, a video, I'll read the first 2 comments and I'm all set. I get the tenor and tone of it from those first 2. But, you know, Jason is still, this is part of some plan to discredit her because he really wants the house and stuff. And I mean, this stuff goes out there, you know, and that's social media. That's the internet, you know, those kind of things happen. And we see it a lot where someone will make an accusation and then a public stoning takes place, right? All the commenters will come out, they'll pick up a rock and somebody will say, get him. And everybody goes ahead and takes a shot and tries to punch down at people, you know. And I know that's a little off base, but nonetheless, you know, we've seen those kind of things with the Conjuring House. Going forward, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen to the property. There are signs of decay now on the structure, and the yard is unkept. So, I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point what the end game is. You know, people say they should turn it into a museum. The town doesn't want that property. It doesn't have any real historic significance. All right, it's not a National Register thing. It may have to the town of Burrillville and the village of Harrisville, but it's not like somebody can swoop in and, you know, assume that kind of money and, you know, turn it into a museum. The, you know, municipal government will want nothing to do with that.
Here's what I
don't know.
Here's what will happen is if she continues down the path that she's on, then eventually there will be an issue where taxes aren't getting paid. And I know that she has income from, you know, other sources, but we're going to get to a point. And I'm saying this could come more of a fact that she's going to say, if I'm not able to operate this as a business, which now she's not able to, then I'm not going to put any more money into this. And she'll end up losing it. The town will take it or someone will take it. Now they have, I don't know if Rhode Island has done away with it, but people can buy what you owe for back taxes and they can take over your property, and it's called equity theft, but that can happen. And so that might be something that's in the future. It could be something where the town ends up auctioning it off in order to get the back taxes, and somebody comes in for a song, and somebody comes in for a song and takes that property. So that's the future. The other part of this, and I know, God bless all the people that don't want to say what they know because they were involved in this. But I would just caution the public who think that there's more to this from a paranormal side or from whatever side they want to look at it. Look at those videos from when she was pulled over for allegedly drunk driving and start to add that aspect into what's been going on. And you're going to start to be able to make a lot more sense out of this breakdown. And that's all that I'll say for fear of getting a strongly worded letter to follow or a potential lawsuit myself. But that, you know, now that it's out there in the public realm, you have to start weighing in and think about how does that affect somebody that already is going through mental struggles if they are self-medicating in some way.
Yeah.
You don't want
Mark
Elizabeth
yourself
Hurley
safe
coming
from
after you, Tim.
I do want her to come after me,
Oh, okay.
but not quite in the way that she was threatening.
I fear that this is going to just all end badly. I feel like she's going to be a if I can't have it, no one can have it type of person, and she's just going to let the whole thing just become so dilapidated and so far gone that it can't be brought back, and nobody's going to be interested in buying it except, maybe U.S. Ghost Adventures or somebody, where they'll exploit it. But and I honestly, and I shouldn't even put this out into the ether, but I honestly think that she'll do something stupid, like have it destroyed and turn it into a parking lot, or a fire accidentally will happen, and something like that. Like, I really do feel like her attitude will be, if I can't have it, no one can have it. And that's my fear anyway.
I fear the same.
Well, we've all been we know that structurally that's a place that needs a lot of work, that didn't get it at a time where it really needed it. And when Jen and Corey had, this is playing catch up now with things that should have been done 20 years ago, if not more. So, hey, the best to all concerned. And I still mean that from the bottom of my heart. But at this point, I've moved on to the point of, what's going to happen. Nothing I'm going to say or do is going to change anything. So I just hope that whether it's spiritually or, whatever dimension of this you want to look at, that, it has a good resolution, but I have my doubts. Now, another place, I want to talk about a place in Middleborough, Massachusetts called the Peter Oliver House. And I think, and nobody cares about this, I may have been one of the first people along with the group to investigate this place, and I'm going back a few years. Whether we were or weren't, it doesn't matter. Who cares? But for the longest time, they... Now, what you're seeing right there, I'm not sure what year that was taken, but an awful lot of work has been done on this place to save it. And it's a very historically significant location. And this has been done by allowing people to come in to investigate for, I think, a nominal price, with all money going to the preservation and, in some cases, restoration of this place. And compared to what it was when we first walked in, and what Christy Parrish has done to it, and she gets a lot. She gets a lion's share of the credit for the dedication she put into this place. So, long story short, last year, the property was still owned by the town of Middleborough, and they banned paranormal investigations there. That's me and sitting there with Christy. So the town decided to ban paranormal investigations there. And I think Tim's done some reporting on this. So now that they've banned it, Tim, where are we going from here? And what did I maybe leave out of that? Mic issues.
Tim, your mic issues again. Readjust your mic, Tim, and then bring it back. No, I keep muting you because you're just distorted. Try it again.
Try again. Nah, just a lot of static.
Yeah, a lot of cellophane sound to it. No, buddy. It's just not. Check again.
That's all right. He's gonna maybe log back in.
Reboot.
Tom,
we
I don't
could-
know how familiar you are with this whole situation. I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you heard of-
I don't know a whole lot about it. I think I read an article or something somewhere.
Yeah.
So, what is the future of the place? The town owns it now, but they don't want to allow anybody in there. What are they planning to do with it?
turn it into office space.
Oh, okay. So
Lease
yeah.
it out to.
So they just want the tax
yeah.
money and property money and
So,
everything.
it'll probably be the location of either, how those places go. Real estate companies love historic places, or
Yeah.
lawyer's office or something along those lines.
Well,
So,
you'll have some new clients who are saying their offices are haunted that you can go and investigate with them.
yeah, one can only hope.
It's
you
a
know-
shame when you see any kind of old or historic place get torn down. It breaks my heart. I mean, we live up here in New England, and everything is so historic all around us. And when we see it get replaced by something modern, boy, it just takes some of the character away from our upbringing up here. All the
Right.
history gets erased. It's sad.
Yeah, I think probably have Tim back now. So
I think so. Can you hear me?
okay,
Okay, now?
we got you, Tim. I want you to pick up the ball here and just kind of run with it on this.
So the town of Middleborough owns this property. They saw what Christie was able to do with all of her hard work and all of the dedication of the people in the paranormal world, and they took it from that dilapidated place, Ken, that we remember way back when, to a place that is now a functional building. And as such, now they're seeing much more potential financial possibilities for that place. So what they're doing is they've ended Christie's employment there. And by employment, she wasn't being paid for it, but she was the person that was in charge, and are now going to do what's called a request for proposal. So they're going to put it out to bid for anybody that might want to take over that space for whatever purpose they may want to do. That might be a business that wants to come in and use it for an antique shop. It might be somebody that wants to come in and use it for a lawyer's or a doctor's office. So the idea being that they would be leasing it from the town would still own it, and they would be making monthly rent off of it, which would be a lot more money than they're making off the paranormal. Right now, from what Christie's told me, they don't have to dip into town funds to take care of the property. It makes enough money to be self-sustaining, but that it's not a revenue generator for them because she's using all the money that's coming in for different restorations. So the idea being that now they can make some money off of this. Her agreement with them ended. They told her, you'll be able to put in one of these requests for proposals. They have not yet put it out to the public to be able to do that. So she hasn't had that opportunity, and she doesn't even know if it's something that she would want to do. They did reach out to her and say, well, why don't you just keep things going? And I don't think she'll mind me saying this, but what?
Yeah, we lost you again, Tim.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah, he's muted again.
Yeah,
But we got the gist. It'll end up being some rich company, lawyer's office or something, that'll end up buying it or renting it.
Well, when we get Tim back, I mean, here's my point. And again, this is something he's reported on. I understand that things change, and sometimes we regret it. A place that was accessible suddenly has a new board of directors who aren't interested in the paranormal anymore. They want to emphasize the historical. I understand that. It's frustrating. If you've been there and you have an affinity for the place, I get it. And when a place closes down or is sold, those things happen. Again, I understand it. I get it. It's frustrating, but I don't know, the kind of emotional side of me says this place was renovated by dollars that were generated by the paranormal community, and it was not in great shape. Structurally, it was okay. It's not like the roof was leaking, but this place needed a lot of TLC, and it got it. And then when it finally became viable enough on everybody else's dime, and the town didn't have to. Well, I'm not sure Tim would, know if the town was, pouring money into this place too. I have no idea. But by and large, it was fixed up by volunteers and people who supported the place. And then when it became nice enough and viable enough to be a revenue generator, then it was taken away. And that is that's one, I get it. I'm not naive. These things happen, but that kind of thing, it bothers me a little bit. I probably feel worse for Christy and the people who supported this place. Tim, I think we have you back, so go ahead.
Yeah, it bothers, and I might not sound nearly as good because I'm coming from my headset now, but it bothers me that they would put this plan into place, first of all, without even knowing the viability of it. So it'd be different if you put out the RFPs and you came back and said, here's what we're going to do. But instead, they're just operating on the idea that they're going to get people that might be interested, which makes me think, who's already reached out to them to say, if you did this, I'd be interested in it. And if that's the case, now we're dealing with something that's, a whole different story. But who is going to want to take that place over? Who's going to want to run a doctor's office or a lawyer's office out of a place where they know people are going to be looking in the windows for ghosts, or people are going to be trying to sneak into at night? As a paranormal facility, they had all of those things in place to be able to keep that from happening. I don't know that somebody else would do the same thing. And the other part of it too is you're going to get the whole, well, what if we work together? Where I'm going to operate my business out of this during the day and you can come and run the ghost hunts at night and on the weekends. Well, what's the benefit for people for that to say, well, now you can't go into this room because there's employee client files in there, and now you can't go in there. So I think what you're seeing is you're going to see nobody bid on it, and you're going to see a town that's kind of backpedaling to try to get something out of it. And then when nothing happens, they can go through what their original plan was 20 years ago, which is let's just level it and sell the property as commercial space. And that's even more concerning.
We have to let KGRA go and Bill Forte, our producer, go so he can get on to his next show. So if we run over a few minutes, then it's going to be only here exclusively on YouTube at Dead Air Nation. If you guys are listening elsewhere and you want to come check us out, switch over to YouTube, type in at Dead Air Nation, where we'll continue this discussion. Bill, thank you for everything, buddy. We'll talk to you later on. But
come on over, folks. We're not done yet.
Let's continue on. Go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead, Tim. Pick it up.
I mean, that's just really where I see it happening is I don't know that anybody's going to be interested. And then I get really worried about what they're going to think is the viability of the property, because anybody that's been there knows you're right on the corner of Route 44. Either the KOA campground across the street might want it, or I could see, a Dunkin' Donuts, wanting to come into that spot, or a McDonald's or something, because you're right on a highway and you're right on the corner. And I would be more concerned about what the ideas are for utilizing that property if they weren't going to keep, a 300-year-old building on it.
Right. Isn't there a campground across the street?
Yeah, that's the KOA, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if, what their financial situation is, but that would be the only thing viable, more campgrounds or something like that. This one just kind of sticks with me because it was town owned, which makes it a little different. It's not like, an historical society has total stewardship over and the board changes and suddenly a bunch of tight asses come in. We don't have paranormal here, that kind of stuff happens. Or an owner just wants to get out from under it, whether it's a house or something. And then, maybe a Dan Class or Johnny Hauser, will come along and pick up the ball, but that's not always the case. So we've talked about it before. Sometimes haunted places go away and there is a certain amount of ownership that the paranormal community feels they have. For me, it just smells a little different because it is what it is now because of the interest and the generosity and the volunteerism. And now to essentially say, hey, thanks, great job. Hey, this place looked pretty good now. That's unfortunate. I wanted to close this up with the location that Tim is sitting in front of right now on 2nd Street. out in the middle of traffic. No one's come by and pegged him a finger yet, I don't think.
How
But
have I
in
not been mugged already? It's Fall River.
in November of last year, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit ruled in favor of Miss Lizzie's Coffee. So, Tim, basically, for everybody out there who's just wondering what the hell we're talking about, which is probably majority of our audience on some of these things, tell them the legend of Miss Lizzie's Coffee.
So this is a business that opened up directly next door to the Lizzie Borden house. And this building has a connection to the Borden story because back in the time before Lizzie Borden's father purchased the house on 2nd Street, this was owned by one of his relatives, his uncle. And he actually was married a couple of times, but his second wife, Eliza Borden, she actually was suffering from postpartum depression, we believe. She took her 3 children down into the basement, drowned 2 of them in the cistern. One of them got away, and then she took her own life. And these children have been part of the Lizzie Borden house story for a number of years, and now, they're in the place where they belong because this place has been open to investigation. But when it opened as a coffee shop, the house tried to put the owner of the house, U.S. Ghost Adventures, tried to put the kibosh on that, claiming that it was a copyright infringement, that they were taking the Lizzie Borden name and their Hatchet logo and utilizing that. Now you can see right there from the picture that the Hatchet logos are distinctly different. So that's not a copyright violation, as Judge Leo Sorokin agreed. And also, the copyright only protected the Lizzie Borden house for having a bed and breakfast type establishment or a restaurant, not a coffee shop. And it only covered the Lizzie Borden itself name, not Miss Lizzie. So Judge Sorokin found in favor of the coffee shop. We figured everything was going to be done then. Instead, U.S. Ghost Adventures filed an appeal. And that appeal, they had a mediator that they met with. The mediator still found in favor of Miss Lizzie's Coffee. So U.S. Ghost Adventures wanted to keep pushing it even further and then took it to the U.S. Court of Appeals, which was a 3-judge panel. And the 3-judge panel affirmed Leo Sorokin's decision and affirmed that Miss Lizzie's Coffee, because they were looking for an injunction to keep them from being able to operate. Mm-hmm. And they affirmed that, that you can't own the story, that you can't own the legend or the name of Lizzie Borden. You can only own those copyrights to which they were entitled for their type of business and their trademarks. So this turned into a whole thing designed, I think, to bankrupt Joe Pereira, the owner of Miss Lizzie's Coffee, because U.S. Ghost Adventures was willing to keep taking him into court, thinking he's going to have to pay for lawyers and do all that. Well, Joe represented himself in a lot of these proceedings, and was able to write his own briefs and was able to defeat them now. And it was just this decision just came down from the U.S. Court of Appeals. So now there was an attempt by U.S. Ghost Adventures to sue Joe Pereira for defamation because he came on my radio show and disparaged the house and disparaged the owner in their eyes. And I guess from what Joe was telling me last weekend, now that suit has been dropped as well because he realized that he wasn't going to win. So it just turned into, the Lizzie Borden house trying to claim, hey, we're just a small business trying to stay afloat here, when really it's a corporation with all this money behind it, supposedly. And they're the ones that were actually trying to put the little guy out of business. And in this case, the little guy prevailed.
I just want to weigh in on this before we hear from Tom. I am not the first one who ever noticed this or mentioned it. Tim, you may have been the first. I'm not the only one who thought of this, but the name of the company is U.S. Ghost Adventures, right? So within their name, they are using the name of, an extremely popular television show to just get a piece of that name, but yet have an issue when their neighbor next door uses the name Lizzie in there. So the irony and the hypocrisy is not lost on me.
Nor was it lost on Judge Sorokin, who brought up the same point in his original decision. Oh. The other part of it, too, is not only did they take the name of U.S. Ghost Adventures, which was designed to kind of steal the SEO juice, I think, from Ghost Adventures, but also they create tours all over the country
Right.
that they've been accused of not only stealing the stories from the tourists, people's own personal stories, stealing those for the tourists, but also making names of the ghost tours that they create that are eerily similar to the tours that are already in existence to try to steal away some of their juice as well. So they've been doing the same thing they've been accusing them of for years, and it's kind of become their entire business model.
Well, we had a show on it where we brought someone in from the Midwest, somebody from down south, and Courtney from Providence, because that was an issue because they were calling themselves Providence's #1 ghost tour before they even had their first event. But this is what and who you're dealing with at this point. I just want to mention really quickly that Tim has done an event there, did an investigation there. And we are ready now that the holidays open. We've talked about it ourselves with a very small group ourselves going down there. You know, myself, Cody, Satori, a couple of other people. You know, not for very long, no event or anything like that, but just to get information. And I also have some donations I have to make as far as medicine bottles to the downstairs. Tom, again, you know, I don't know how familiar you are with the whole story, but just generally speaking on this type of case, what are you thinking right now?
I was following the case through Tim's reporting and everything he was putting on the radio and online and everything.
As was I.
The whole time, I just kept saying, what hypocrites? They literally call themselves Ghost Adventures, and they're mad that somebody is stealing their name. And I have a gripe with this company now, too, because they just recently purchased the Lollery House down in New Orleans, and they're going to turn that into a tourist trap now, which that was like #1 on my list of dream places to do an actual paranormal investigation in. And now it's just going to be, you know, it's going to be turned into, it's going to be exploited by them like they do all the places that they end up buying. And like I alluded to earlier, I hope they don't swoop in and buy Conjuring House from Jacqueline Nunez. And, you know, they've probably got their eyes on it. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they've made an offer already.
Didn't they, though?
From my understanding, they made an offer previously, but they were on the, Corey and Jen, forgive me for saying this out loud, but they were on their short list. He was on their short list of people not to sell to.
Yeah,
good. Yeah, but I don't know.
Were made.
I don't know if Jacqueline will be the same way, have the same integrity.
not when you need the money. The one thing I'll say about this, the positive thing about it, and Joe has said this again and again, is more people know about this coffee shop now than ever would have. And now he's getting people from all over the world on a daily basis. And there was a day when he said to myself and my friend Mallory, we were there, and he said, well, you know what? I haven't really let anybody downstairs yet to investigate. Do you want to go down there and investigate? And we went down there and right off the bat started getting stuff that had been happening. And now every time I've gone there, you know, we've had things that have gone on. And Joe is very good about just letting people go down there if they want to go down there. And he cleared out the basement. I don't know, Ken, if you've been down there in the basement, but he had all the coffee cups and everything, the boxes and everything down there. He's moved all that. And now Dr. Kelly's office and the basement where the incident happened with the children is all completely free and clear for people to be able to walk around and investigate.
That was in that room off of the doctor's office, right?
Where there's the chimney and it kind of leads to that door behind where they serve the coffee. So now it's been opened up and more stuff planned in the future as well. I got to go upstairs on the 3rd floor last week, and that's going to be opened up for people as well.
The upstairs is phenomenal. The previous time I went in there, we were just buying coffee sitting at the tables. And then the last time we went in this summer or late summer, wow, the whole upstairs was open, another little cafe and, you know, some sofas and chairs, you know, wonderful little cafe.
It's
really
great. And you
got to
see the 3rd floor too, Dr. Kelly's living quarters. That's a nice space that they're looking to make it so that people can actually, you know, investigate there and check it out. And they actually have some podcasts that are running out of there as well. So it really is, it's a gift to the paranormal community as we've kind of lost the Lizzie Borden house next door, and we get to tell a different story. And kind of set the record straight for somebody who really doesn't deserve the vilification that she's gotten. And at the same time, also kind of reclaim the ghosts that people have been falsely saying that they've been experiencing next door, where, you know, they've got tour guides over there that would tell people, oh, Lizzie used to come over and play with her niece and nephew in this house. Like, how? They were murdered 12 years before she was born. So, you know, we're starting to get the true story back. And as part of this, where we actually have an effort going to try to make a more significant monument to Eliza Borden and the children where their graves are, because they have these very small, kind of unassuming graves that we think there should be a little bit something more there for her and the children.
Yes. You know, there is, and, you know, we'll let everybody, you know, we're going to tell you that story, but, you know, you can find it as far as that. It's heart-wrenching, and it's predates, you know, anything that happened next door. While we're talking about George, I had one more thing, and it leads right into it. Companies offering things like guaranteed ghost sightings, evidence of paranormal activity. The ethics when companies, corporations come in rather than a paranormal volunteer group, an individual holding an event there. And I'm certainly not talking about people who donate the profits to that location to help it out. You know, I'm talking about, you know, the commercial thing. You know, for example, I guess not US Ghost Adventures. What was the other one? I had it over here. What the hell? Ghost Hunts USA.
Yeah.
Who I think are pretty much out of business. And I'll tell you how bad it was. They get thrown out of the Conjuring House. That's bad. They're told you can't hold events here anymore. Think about that. That's how bad things are. But places like Wilson Castle and a few other places, they had some problems because they weren't booking them, or they weren't paying, or they were booking them a year in advance and never following through, forcing the location to turn away other people that may have wanted that particular night. So we're talking about rentals. You know, maybe certain places they're donation, but for the most part, they're rentals. And of course, it's whatever they want, and they walk away with profit. And more of these corporations are coming in and taking these places. And I can't say that I blame some of them for taking the money to stay open and stay viable. But the downside of that is some of the stories that are being told and some of the guarantees that are being made if you come here are all pretty disjointed. They're all sensationalized or exaggerated, all to draw people in to this place. So I wanted to end with that. Seeing as how we're talking about and they're also doing the ghost tours, like Tim said, all over the country, putting a lot of mom and pops and people with, you know, I mean, Tim's done this at the Fearing Tavern for a long time, just trying to keep the place above board. And we know that there have been places like Houghton Mansion, who were a gold mine but had to sell. I still don't understand why. I don't know where that money went. That was a hot spot at one point. But I just wanted to talk a little bit before we get out of here about the idea of the corporate side of the paranormal and some of the ethics involved there and why people take issue with them. Or do you have an issue with them?
Go ahead, Tim. I feel like you'll definitely have something here.
I mean, I definitely do. But my problem is the fact that you've got, so listen, anything that can become a business is going to become a business. So we expect that to be part of it. But also, you know, the ethics that are involved in it are the question, like you're saying, Ken. It's the promises that are made or the promises that aren't kept. You mentioned Ghost Hunts USA. I remember when I had booked the Lizzie Borden house for an event and I hadn't announced it yet because I was trying to make, I had some people that were going to come from out of state and I wanted to make sure that they got first crack at the tickets kind of thing. So they were kind of, you know, working out their travel schedule. So I hadn't announced it yet. And then they had put out that they had booked that date and that they were going to be going there. And I called Leanne. I said, wait a minute, I have that date on hold. And she goes, yeah, you do. And I was like, well, Ghost Hunts USA is advertising. She goes, nobody from there has talked to me. So she actually banned them from ever doing events there because of that. They would just put it out there. And now we see, as much as it's happening with locations, one of the other things that I'm seeing this year more than ever is people that are taking equipment and apps and things that people have created and ripping them off and just creating their own versions of them and going out and selling those. And it really has become kind of the Wild West in terms of any kind of ethics in some of these things. And I think because you've got companies in here that are coming in to make money now, like a US Ghost Adventures and the things that they do, that's made other people say, well, why don't I follow that model instead of, the model that all these other people have been doing for 20 or 30 years. They're making more money. I'd much rather do it that way and be able to go out and buy the Laurie Mansion or the Villisca Axe Murder House sometime in the future. So you're seeing people kind of copying what's being done when what's being done isn't being done the right way.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest issue people have with it. I don't think it's like, hey, listen, if the market is there for it, caveat emptor, folks. Spend the money or don't spend the money. That is entirely up to you if it's something you want to do. But there are promises that are made. And like I say, exaggerations, whether it's changing the history or emphasizing things that have already been disproven like decades ago, because it makes a good story. And, it's not a scientific process at all. It's a public event, which is fine. The tourism aspect of it is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it's just they could, while they are a part of the paranormal, they're not part and parcel of the paranormal. You understand what I mean? They're not out there doing scientific research and, trying to prove anything. I mean, it's business, trying to turn a profit. So, Tom, you got any thoughts on that before we?
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, it's about making profit. People have seen that the world of paranormal can be profitable, and so people have tried to cash in on it. I mean, that's been going on since way back in the day when people were charging you to have, a seance or a table tipping session or something.
Let me get this ticker up. Let me get this ticker up underneath you to subscribe to Dead Air. Okay.
Yes,
subscribe
exactly.
To Dead Air.
It's all about the money. Get to that Patreon, folks. Smash that like button. No, but I also want to say buyer beware because, just like any place else you would go for entertainment, you gotta do your research. You gotta read the fine print. You got to look for those little asterisks next to the things they claim, because down the bottom it's going to say, for entertainment purposes, or our version of what a ghost is might not be what you think a ghost is, or whatever. So, you got to have a little buyer beware there too when it comes to this stuff. I mean, if somebody's promising you something that doesn't seem like it's possible, then obviously it's not. Go with your instinct on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fine point.
Well, I tell you what, guys, we went a little bit over, but we covered a lot tonight from 2024, and I don't think that 2025 is going to slow down by any means. There's always going to be new stories coming out there and continued stories from this previous year. But Tim Weisberg, Tom Stewart, thank you guys for joining us. Hang in there for just a second. Let me close it out for us. Those of you that have joined us tonight, thank you so much for your patronage. And, of course, tomorrow night, Town Hall on our Patreon account, as Tom Stewart just talked about. So make sure you guys check it out, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Come and join us. Until next time, we'll see you guys next week. Our West Coasters, we talk about the wildfires out there in California. So make sure you guys do subscribe and hit that reminder bell. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Thank you. I clicked on it. It didn't work. There we go. I'll do the outro the way I would normally do the outro.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me. Turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease. Big lips.